Hallelujah. Forever. And you are the love I need. You are the air I breathe. You are my love, my life, always, forever. I would lay down my life just to be by your side. You are my love, my life, always, forever. One more time. You are the love I need. You are the air I breathe. You are my love, my life, always, forever. And I will lay down my life just to be by your side. You are my love, my life, always, forever. Always, forever. Lord, thank you so much for giving us tonight, and let us open our hearts to you, Lord, as you work through us and everything we're going through, Lord. Just know that your hand is upon our lives, and just listen to Daniel's words tonight as he brings us more of your word. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. No, all the verses are going to be on the screen tonight. Thank you, Jackson.
Dun, dun, dun.
What?
There's something
What can I go on?
Once upon a time, I had really bad.
Once upon a time, there was a little thing. Problem. We got spoiler.
He just said nothing.
Spoiler. We
Who's
got
Jeremiah? He
spoiler.
ruined the entire slide thing. Knowledge. What? Which one?
Everybody say thank you, Elijah.
Thanks, Elijah. You're my bestie.
Say we know my little black clicky remote thing.
Pointer?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Spoiler.
I feel like I know where it is, but I don't see it.
Maybe he's over there. Watch it.
In this mess.
Wow, it is about my life.
Are you okay, Jeremiah? You don't copyright. It's 412.
Alright, well, can I get a leader to volunteer come click next?
I will. I will. I want to. I said it first. I'm qualified. I'm a servant.
I'm qualified in this underworld.
Who's princess?
PowerPoint
Wait.
before.
Ladies and gentlemen, who's princess? No, just say, I'm princess.
I'm princess. You basically.
Use your mouth.
I'm Princess Dallas of Chico. Denali. I'm Princess Dallas of the city of trees. I'm Princess Dallas of. I'm a screen prince. I'm Princess Dallas of the city.
And I'm a king.
I hate you guys.
What half is
You know
that?
what it is.
It's just
I think I do. It's creepy.
Yeah, it really is.
He cheated on me.
Exclamation escalated too much.
He was my boyfriend and cheated on me.
That's how you say.
Right here,
Alright. So, tonight, one more topic night in our series of topics that you guys have asked for. This is getting towards the end of the list, though. We're almost done with topic nights. Nearly hit all the topics. Say again?
Small group next week?
Not next week. I think there's one more topic.
September we start.
Wait,
I think it's by the month. So like the rest of August, we're still doing topics, and then September.
what's the, because I know what the small group is, I thought that's the next one.
Oh yeah. I get what you're saying now.
Will you tell me that?
I was thinking about like how we did John in small groups.
That's definitely a small
So
group.
then I thought you were moving into okay, I get it now. Yes. All right. Anyways, tonight we're talking about drugs and alcohol. We'll touch lightly on partying. I used to have a bad habit of naming these things on our website for the parents to keep track of like what we're doing, and I just call it like name of topic night. So we'd have like a night about Mormonism, and we'd call it Mormonism night. And we'd have like a night about Buddhism, we call it Buddhism night. And so we literally had like a night about sex, and we call it sex night. And then we had a night about drugs, and we called it drugs night. And I got phone calls. I got phone calls. And so now all of my website stuff says topic night, the topic we are studying, rather than just drugs and alcohol night. Apparently, when you label something drugs and alcohol night, people get like ideas that something is going to be included free.
Oh.
And that's never really been the case. But some people, they were worried about that.
That's not really the case.
It's never been the case, ever. We give free samples of information about things. It's a bait and switch.
We got
No,
spoiler
bait and
alert.
switch. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about drugs and alcohol, but as always, when we do these topic nights, we do them from God's perspective. Not my perspective, not your perspective, but God's perspective. So we're going to be looking at drugs and alcohol from God's perspective. Oddly enough, God actually groups in drugs with witchcraft, and he talks about witchcraft and drugs together. He never really separates the two. And this is interesting if you think about it. Drugs nowadays are usually from one particular source, but we have some exceptions. We have some drugs now on the market that people are taking to get high or get some other kind of feeling, and it is actually a concoction. You know, a chemist actually has to mix up the stuff. Now, this is why, originally in the Bible, these things get lumped together, because way, way, way back, all drugs were like this. They all were processed and concocted and mixed up in what would look like to most people, you know, a witch's little pot of brew. And so this is why these two things are similar. A cauldron, thank you. These things are talked about in the same way. And the reason they're lumped together goes beyond just the practical. It gets to the actual heart of it. What was witchcraft invented for? Does anybody know? Yeah?
Black magic or something?
Okay, but like, you're not wrong, but the question I mean is like, what would be the motivation? Why do you think people went to that?
Because there's this.
Because they hate their lives.
Well, no, because there's this theory about basically you would feel safe going to somewhere else to where you can know what would happen to you, know all the rules and guides of it. But some people fear God because they don't know what can actually happen in the afterlife. So what they do is, if you're talking about like witchcraft of like the dark side, when they can actually believe in guidelines that are already there and fully put together of like where your soul will actually be ending up after. So some people just do it because of fear and other things.
Interesting. So they're looking for something that gives them control? Does that make sense? Like get control over their future?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of right. I think a lot of people go to stuff like that for that motivation. Any other thoughts? There's not like a right one answer. Lots of people go to stuff like drugs and witchcraft for different reasons. To get high, yeah, okay, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Medical reasons.
Medical reasons, okay.
Wait, for witchcraft or drugs?
You can take your pick.
Well, for witchcraft.
Okay.
To like maybe convene with the dead.
Oh, talk to
That's
someone who
necromancy.
you couldn't otherwise talk to. Okay.
What?
Yeah.
necromancy.
Yeah.
Like
just-
necromancy,
just
okay.
like that.
Yeah. You're not looking but your hands in the air. There it is.
Okay, so I was gonna say some people now do it because it's cool.
Okay.
So yeah.
Do you mean witchcraft or drugs or both?
Drugs.
Okay.
Wait.
When I was growing up, I don't know about you guys, but I actually had friends who did witchcraft because it was cool.
Okay, when I was in like 3rd grade, everybody was like, "I'm a vampire."
Yes.
If you're a
I know what you're
vampire,
talking about.
guess what?
And about 4 years before that, it was so much
Don't
more
become
hilarious.
fire.
It was I'm an airbender. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, it's kind of like this because basically what it is. The reason why people with ADHD are so giddy or like high up and energized is basically because people without ADHD basically have a steady flow or a stimulated flow of dopamine, and dopamine is a feeling or a chemical reaction that makes you feel good. And basically what happens is when an ADHD or a person with ADHD gets a dopamine rush, that's basically when they do something big, so they look around the room for other projects or something bigger to explain about to get themselves a dopamine high. And basically it's kind of like a person without cocaine, they're always looking kind of jitty and looking for something. So that's what
They're always coming down.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's a person with ADHD is gonna go
Interesting way to look at that. I like that. All right, yeah, Jaden.
Some people go to witchcraft for prophecy.
Okay, they want to know the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call that divination. But yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What you was describing fits right into changing how you perceive
No.
your reality.
Okay.
Whether you're enhancing how you already perceive it, or trying to, or you're trying to de-emphasize how much it
Yeah.
your reality is.
There are some drugs out there that will give you slowness, delayed reaction, calmness, less energy, and it's basically trying to go down. And then there are other drugs where people call it a high, and that's the opposite. You're trying to go up. And so people are trying to alter how they currently feel. They want to feel mellower, or they want to feel happier, or they want to feel something other than what they're feeling right now. All right, so we've got our motivations kind of tacked onto this, and there's probably more. I know we really don't have time to get to every single motivation in the world, but let's just take the lump sum we've got here. And what's interesting is, despite how different we now view witchcraft from drugs, some of the same motivations are still pulling people into both of these. Wanting to change how their life is, wanting to change how they themselves feel, wanting to get something that they don't have, essentially. And so they look for something that can become a shortcut. But as with many shortcuts, biological or not, there's consequences. You take the shortcut and it's not going to get you where you were trying to get to without repercussions. It's going to have some repercussions attached. Drugs, in this case, are all poisonous. And depending on how much you take, the dose you take, the speed at which you take them, it could do anything from small symptoms to large symptoms to kill you. And all it has to do with is how much and how fast you take it. Basically, every drug out there is lethal. I know a lot of people say pot isn't lethal, but that's not actually true either. It can actually kill you. Most people just aren't ever able to take enough of it in one go because they pass out. That is not healthy. Passing out from a substance is still damaging to your body. But it might save your life, so you can look at that however you want. Alcohol can quickly become a drug. Alcohol does not start as a drug, however. And this is interesting. There are many other substances in life, like alcohol, where in a small dose or in moderation, it will not cause addictive effects. It will not cause lasting bodily harm, and it won't alter who you are or how you behave. But all you have to do is get to the right dose, and suddenly it turns into a drug. It can become addictive. It can change who you are. It can have lasting consequences. And this really just has to do with the dosage. We're going to look at alcohol's dosage in a second more closely. And then last, just to mention partying, one of the worst ways to meet people and have fun is partying. Partying in quotation marks. I have to put that in quotation marks. Because obviously, all of us have gone to birthday parties since we were a tiny child. And this is not what the word partying means. This is not the get together with friends, play games, eat cake style of partying. This is something that's actually a really big deal in Chico in particular. And it's in most cities. It's not like you're going to find one where there isn't partying. But in Chico, there is more partying than in many cities the same size as ours. And the partying gets to be more dangerous than not partying because of what's going on at the party. It's not the fact that there's a party. Having a party is not wrong. Having a party is not dangerous in and of itself. It's all about what happens at the party. If everyone at the party is getting intoxicated and inebriated, that means you have a large group of people in a small amount of space with very little judgment. That kind of sounds like the beginnings of a mob or a riot, except now it's smaller. It's like a mob or riot in a house.
Just
Not
a more dense
great. It's a more dense, smaller. It's a compact riot. All right, Audrey, what were you gonna say?
I have partiers like my neighbors are partiers. So
Is that really fun for you?
no. Keep you up all night.
The
They're
first
like on their
place.
megaphone, like screaming random
They
stuff.
have a megaphone.
Yeah, and then they ride their Harleys down the road. It's annoying.
Harleys.
At like 2
There are
a.m.
parties when
Oh my
people are on a
gosh.
shed and then it collapses because there's too much weight on top of it.
That sounds
What
like
a pool
fun.
day, yeah.
When we first got married, me and Emily, our first house was like a converted basement where they'd taken a basement and like finished it, did electrical, did air conditioning, did all that stuff. So we were living under someone else's house. But like once you're in our basement house, the only thing that tipped you off you were in a basement was all the windows were half as tall as they should be.
It looked like a World War II bunker.
But it was nice. Like the paint was nice, the carpet was nice, everything was nice. It was just you were living underneath someone. So we were doing like a lease takeover, so we're like talking to the previous tenants, like, so how are the people upstairs? Oh, we hardly ever hear them. They're not that bad. I mean, we're at work most of the day, but when we come home, you can't even tell they're there. They're super quiet. We're like, oh, good.
That's totally a lie.
It turns out they were actually budding actresses who wanted to move to like Hollywood and get into filming, and they're really good. They totally had us. The people upstairs partied 5 days a week. They only stopped partying on Tuesday and Wednesday to like try and make it to some of their college classes, but then the whole rest, like from Thursday back through Monday, was just partying. And the funny thing was, the two guys that lived upstairs were really nice. They just had a ton of friends who liked to party, and there's no parents living upstairs. It's just these two college guys. So all their friends, without asking, without like getting permission, they just show up every night to party. And like these two guys, what are they gonna do? Tell all their friends not to come over to their house?
Yeah.
but no, they didn't. So we just, oh yeah, it's against the rules. It was against the lease. It's against the noise ordinances because they party till way late in the night. The lease said you couldn't have more than 10 people in the house at a time, so like the landlord should kick them out, but it didn't matter. Nobody actually did anything. The police would just come knock on the door and say, please be quiet. The landlord would do absolutely nothing because their parents had like paid their rent through the end of the school year. So they didn't want to kick them out. Anyways, I'm digressing. We're going to look at regions of the brain. This is how alcohol starts to affect you as you drink a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So as we go down, these things start happening more and more as you drink more and more. So first off, it depresses behavioral inhibitory centers. So you have this little part at the very, very front of your brain, and it's the thing that's kind of like a backseat driver. Like you're living your life, you're doing things, and that little part of your brain goes, hey, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
I'm gonna do it.
That little part of your brain does that, and you're like, you're thinking like, I could throw this basketball really, really hard. Oh, but there's cars in that direction. I should throw it really, really hard in this direction. That little part of your brain is the part that does this. And as you drink alcohol, this is the first part of your brain that just says, oh man, I'm really tired. I'm gonna take a nap, okay? And your brain doesn't all shut off at once. You just pass out, if that was the case. This front part shuts off first. So as you drink alcohol, the first thing that happens when you first get a little bit drunk is the part of your brain that says, that's a terrible idea, just shuts off. And so now you're gonna have to go through the rest of the night, and you don't have hey, that's a terrible idea. You don't have a backseat driver. You don't have someone saying, there's cars in that direction, don't chuck the basketball. Or this bridge is really high. You probably shouldn't jump off it. Or look, there's rocks there and there. You have like a 3-foot square landing zone. Terrible idea. That just shuts down. So after a few drinks, this is the first thing that goes. Drink a little bit more, or just wait a little bit longer, especially if you've had a bunch at the first part. And eventually this starts affecting your movement, your balance. It gets you to kind of stagger as you walk. You can't quite stay walking in a perfectly straight line. That's why cops, when they pull a drunk person over, they ask them to walk a straight line because they know they've had too much if they can't walk in a straight line. That is an absolute.
So it's just, oh, no, I'm not going to say no.
Okay. Keep on moving down and things keep on shutting down as you keep drinking a little bit more, a little bit more. Then the hypothalamus starts going and the pituitary starts going. And these are the automatic brain functions and hormone releases. And so other parts of your body will just start going haywire. It's kind of like you let a 3-year-old into a fireworks shed. It's not like he's in control, but he is in control, right? He could choose to not light the fireworks on fire, but he's a 3-year-old and it's fireworks. So your body just starts releasing hormones and chemicals all over the place. This is why drunk people can routinely wet themselves. Because the automatic parts of your brain, like every day you're walking around every minute of your life, right up until you get to the toilet, your brain is going, don't pee, don't pee, don't pee. Don't pee. And your brain actually has control of this little muscle that holds a little valve at the bottom of your bladder, and it's constantly going, don't pee, don't pee, don't pee, don't pee. And when you get drunk enough, that part of your brain shuts off, and then you can wet yourself at that point. Because your brain just doesn't have the ability to keep that running. You go even further, and you get down to the base here, the medulla. And at this point, you will start to have uncontrollable sleepiness. Not just like, I feel tired, but like the can't keep my eyes open. Oh, I have to go to sleep. The reason for this is every other part of your brain has already shut off. Your entire rest of your brain is now off. It's dead, it's asleep. And the only part alive right now is your reflexes. It's just your basic, you stab my finger with a needle, pull your hand away. That's the only thing you have left at this point, and it's trying to run you. And it's not up to the task. There's way too much going on. I can't keep this going. and eventually you will just lie down. Now, the problem is this. The rate at which you drink alcohol is not the rate at which you get drunk. The reason is because as you drink the alcohol, it goes to your stomach first, it will pause there. And then it will start to enter your bloodstream, and it will saturate there. And then it will start to get into your brain. So there's like this delay from when you actually tip the cup back to when your brain starts feeling the drunkenness come on. So if you drink enough drinks quickly enough, you can get alcohol into your body in the amount that will push you all the way to here before you've actually passed out. It all comes down to how quickly you drink the drink. So if you drink it quick enough, you can get enough in you that in 10 minutes time you will pass out. Or in 10 minutes time you won't be able to hold your bladder shut. Or in 10 minutes time you won't be able to walk in a straight line anymore. And you won't realize that you've had that much until it hits you. So the speed at which you drink has a lot to do with it. The other thing people don't realize is that it actually kind of comes in waves. As your blood starts to absorb the alcohol, as the alcohol starts to get into your brain, as I said, the parts shut off, the symptoms outwardly start changing. So in the very lightly drunk area, you have a kind of euphoria where basically your brain doesn't know how to think about bad things. Bad things are just kind of like away from you.
Kind of like a movie.
You don't really need to think about things. This is nice. And then eventually you get to excitement, where the parts of your brain that receive dopamine start getting a wash in dopamine. So you just have way too much dopamine. And nothing even has to be going on right now, but life is awesome. Woo! And this is why people party. They like that feeling of everything is awesome. But the thing is, nothing's changed. Nothing actually is awesome. You've basically just put enough chemicals in your head that your body is forced to feel awesome. After you get past excitement, then you get to confusion because your brain's going, why? What? All these why questions start flooding you, and you can get dizzy, you can't see straight or speak clearly, and then you start to not even be able to stay awake after that. And if you can stay awake and you get more drunk past this point, then you will start to fall into a stupor where your body doesn't even want to do what you want it to do. You will start to have whole nervous system shutdown type issues where you're just not even sure how or why standing up works.
Isn't that alcohol poisoning?
At this point, yes, you are delving into alcohol poisoning, and at this point it will become difficult to not vomit. And this is why drunk people are classically described as vomiting. It's because they got to that point where their body's going, I can't handle any more of this, and you'll puke. Yes?
But no, puking does not get rid of the alcohol because it's in your blood.
It's in your blood at this point.
People think that throwing
I puked, now I'm fine.
Yeah. No,
Now
it's
you
not
drink
the case.
more.
It's in your blood.
I can drink more now.
It's already in your blood.
It is a good idea.
Alright, after you pass
Yeah,
this, you
Yeah,
can slip
that's-
into a coma. At this point, your pupils will not properly respond. And this can actually maintain. Some of these symptoms will last even as the alcohol level starts to subside. As your liver starts to filter out the alcohol particles and turn them into something else, you will start to be less drunk, but some of the symptoms will stick. Because some of them are not created by the brain as it gets rid of the alcohol. Some of them are actually your body going like, because alcohol is essentially a poison. Taking a little bit of it, your body keeps up. Yeah, I can get rid of this. Let's dump that poison. Take too much of it, your body's like, this is a lot of poison, guys. I think we just need to shut down for a while. Let's just turn off. And if you keep drinking past that, then you die. And then your body just...
It was stupid.
How can
You
you
just-
get past that though if you're in a coma?
That's one of the symptoms. If you're in a coma, great, you might not die. But if the alcohol's still in your gut, still getting absorbed in your bloodstream, still filtering into your brain, you don't have to keep drinking.
So that means you would have to repeat.
The alcohol
No,
level in your
that's
blood will
because-
keep rising even though you didn't have even one more sip.
Well, no, because when
So
people...
you can pass out here in the 3.5 to 5 range, and then when you hit 5, you die.
Yeah, because like when people OD or something like that, the ambulance tries to keep them awake because like once they get in a coma, it's hard to get them out, and then it usually means death.
Basically, the brain is meant to turn off in certain ways. It's like sleep mode for your laptop. It's intended to go down into sleep mode. It's not intended to go into a coma. At any time it goes into a coma, there's always a coin toss of whether we can get it back out again. There's no guarantees you can turn that brain back on. And so once you slip into that coma, maybe you'll live. I don't know. Your body could be fine, but if your brain doesn't just want to turn back on, that's it. You stay in a coma until they pull the plug and the lungs stop breathing for you.
What about the food coma?
That's a little less dangerous, slightly.
Is that actually a thing?
Doesn't affect your brain in exactly the same way, so less comas truly exist in that way. All right, so how much does it take to get drunk? This would be your body weight up here. This would be the number of drinks on average, because every drink's different. And this is how much BAC, blood alcohol concentration, you will get out of that drink. Here's the interesting thing. This is the most you could have and not be considered legally drunk.
Wait, what?
Yeah, this is where it gets weird. And this varies based on the drink and based on your own liver. Your liver has a lot to do with this. They can only vaguely guess at how big your liver is based on your body weight. So you might have an enlarged liver, and maybe you can process more alcohol. Great. But you might also have a tiny liver. And then you're actually worse off than this. So you can break the legal limit by drinking one drink if you're 180 pounds or less. And you can actually get to some of the severe symptoms by the 4th or 5th drink, depending on how much you weigh. Severe meaning lasting. You'll get some symptoms from all this upper range. Some symptoms. But the severe symptoms will kick in around drink 4 or 5 for most people. And that's one of the other reasons that partying is not such a great idea. In a partying atmosphere, you are encouraged to drink more by the people that are around you. If you're at dinner with someone, they're probably not going to be sitting at the table going, one more, one more, one more. What? And so if you have a beer with your dinner or you have a glass of wine with your dinner, and then the dinner's over, you'll probably be fine by the time you get up from the table. Probably won't even be buzzed anymore if you're a full-grown adult who can process that much alcohol going through your system. But go to a party and only drink one drink, and people will probably make fun of you and try and get you to drink more than one drink. And the more drinks you have, the harder it is to say, one more after this is probably a bad idea. Because remember, what was the first part of your brain that shuts off? Bad idea determiner is down for the night. Yeah, that one.
So highly depends on what drink it is. and
Definitely.
alcohol concentration.
Yes, absolutely. Most people drink wine with dinner are not going to fall on this scale because a glass of wine does not hit the average. A glass of wine usually, depending on the brand of wine, is a below average in alcohol content. So wine is usually one of those things where you can drink one and you won't be drunk. Beer, usually, again, depending on the brand, usually one drink will not push you into the over the limit edge spectrum area. So usually that's why people do have a beer with dinner or a wine with dinner, because those are the drinks that won't push you over the edge. Go order something with vodka in it, that's a whole other story. Suddenly the alcohol concentration is much, much higher. One drink can push you a lot further. Yeah, good.
I thought 0.5 was dead.
0.5, not 0.05. Decimals are confusing.
But
So-
it says 0.51.
Oh yeah. You can actually push yourself over past death.
What?
Well, then you would be.
Your
So,
body won't catch
more
up.
Salt water, alcohol absorption, all these things are chemical reactions. Your body does not have to be alive to absorb alcohol.
Oh, I see.
You can literally just leave alcohol touching blood and it will transfuse into the blood. It will start being absorbed. You don't actually have to have like your body like alive
You don't have
for
to move for it
alcohol
to
to get
happen.
absorbed. And if it's sitting in your stomach still, it's going to go ahead and get absorbed. It's just going to pass right through that membrane.
The cells are still working, right? 'Cause
Some
that's
cells,
not being
other cells
produced.
die very fast.
Well, yeah,
Depends on
that's
the cell.
because the alcohol blocks the functions and all that.
Yeah. All right, so that's alcohol for tonight. Let's move on to drugs. What are drugs? A substance that is taken for its narcotic or stimulant effect, often illegally. Any class of substances that blunt the senses, such as opium, morphine, belladonna, and alcohol. In large quantities, they can produce euphoria, stupor, or coma, and when used constantly, can cause habituation or addiction. Habituation is separated from addiction by a very, very thin line. They are nearly the same thing. A stimulant, if you're not aware of that word or what it is, it's an agent, especially a drug, that causes increased activity, especially of the nervous or cardiovascular system. So some stimulants make you feel like you're moving faster, thinking faster, doing things faster in your head. Others will actually get your heart rate up, and your whole body will be running at a faster rate. This is why athletes use steroids. It gets your whole body just running faster. So everything's going quicker, and then you can push yourself that little bit harder.
But that's some of the most
It is cheating, yes.
Then you crash.
But I'm just explaining. That is under that line there, stimulant. That's the same kind of
Hey,
thing.
if you want to talk, raise your hand.
All right, so why are drugs bad? When you do drugs, you're giving up some or all control of your life to a thing. This is one of God's biggest beef with drugs. He looks at us as people who make choices. And we can make good choices, we can make bad choices. But he has a serious issue when we give up the ability to make a choice. The reason for that is we get to start shoving the blame for bad decisions onto something else. But the problem with that is we still made the decision to take the thing into us that took away the control from us. Does this make sense? So even though when you're really, really drunk, you're not really in control of yourself in the same way you would be when you're sober, you still were in control when you got yourself drunk. Does that make sense? So God has an issue with this because what you're doing is you're giving yourself an excuse for terrible behavior. You can go out and do the worst things and then later tell the judge in the courtroom, well, I was under the influence, it wasn't my fault. And in some cases, that will get you less punishment. God has a problem with this because in the first place, you decided to get drunk or high or whatever is keeping you from making good decisions. Problem number 2 is when you do drugs, you are poisoning your body. And this doesn't really have any exceptions. So let's go ahead and read these Bible verses real quick. 2 Corinthians 6:12 says, you say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. Now this could be true of things that aren't drugs, but it's also true of drugs. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. As Christians, we actually do give ourselves to God and say, God, take control of my life. I want you to be in charge. So again, taking drugs, you're saying, yeah, God, you're in charge, but pause for a second. I want to give control over to this thing. So again, you're kind of breaking your word. Yeah?
If God is all-knowing and you get freedom of choices, and how come if he's all-knowing and he already knows what you're going to do and he made this world, then how come he expects you not to do drugs or you get sinned or something like that because you do drugs?
That would be kind of like the same as saying, how come he allowed there to be anything for you to break the rules about?
No, but he already knew that that was going to happen.
Yes. So then he would have to not create you.
No, I know, but he already knew that that was going to happen, so why would he create me?
So why would he create you? Because he wanted the companionship.
Well, then why would he give me drugs?
No, you're kind of missing the point here.
No, I mean, I get it, but I mean, like,
So,
if he
but
already
that's
knew
the
that
same
that
as saying,
was
why
gonna
would he give me, the ability to make a knife that I could go out and do horrible things or good things?
No, I
with?
mean, why would, okay, so he's all.
We have a choice to make. When we found opiates in plants, we had the ability to make a pill that helps people. But we have the choice. That is the point. We have the choice to take opiates and make a pill that's good for people and can help them. When we're cutting into their leg, we can give them morphine and make it so they don't feel their leg as we do surgery on their leg. Or someone can take morphine and abuse it. So the choice is ours. We get to do good with stuff or bad with stuff. But stuff is just stuff. Stuff is just stuff. I can play air hockey on an air hockey table, or I can chuck an air hockey puck at someone's head, right? I can do a good thing with it, I can do a bad thing with it. And the same goes with drugs. Now, some drugs, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a good thing to do with it. Other drugs, not as hard. We've actually found good uses for some of them. But that's kind of the point, is when you abuse a drug, you're giving up control. When you take morphine to go have surgery, you're trying to heal your leg. You're
What if all around
not
you,
abusing the drug.
Do you, okay, so like, what if, okay, so I heard that people use like marijuana for pain.
Some people do that, yes.
But like they don't abuse it, like when they're off. So do you consider that like?
It's going to be case by case. You can't make a blanket statement about people's behavior. Yeah, I'm sure someone out there could properly use marijuana to manage their pain. But the problem I have is this. There are drugs out there that can manage pain that don't have the side effects that pot has. So choosing pot, generally speaking, and this is a huge generalization, obviously there's going to be exceptions, is because someone already likes pot. And then they have pain, so they pick their favorite thing to manage the pain. They pick the thing that can give them lung cancer. They pick the thing that can give them mouth and throat cancer. They pick the thing that can give them heart disease. They pick the thing that can destroy their ability to convey emotions. They pick the thing that can limit their humanity rather than a pill that's not addictive, that doesn't give them a high, it just gets rid of the pain. So, does that make sense? Like, so it's a choice thing again. They're choosing something that's less than the best. It's not to say that no, every person is evil who uses pot. That's not the point. The point is they could be making a better choice in that case. If they really need something to manage pain, there's better options out there than marijuana. All right, so let's move on to marijuana. It actually causes like all the same problems that smoking a cigarette does because you're still smoking smoke. Yes. I did. I'm sorry. We're 6 minutes over on time. I just wanted to hit cannabis real quick because it is kind of the drug of our day. It is one of the most popular in our state. It's now legalized under many reasons.
Dope. Yeah.
All right, so real quick, Bible verse, Proverbs 22:3. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. The idea is that pot doesn't kill a lot of people. It just gets rid of their life. So when we look at a drug, you can't always say like, oh, will it kill me? No. Okay, let's do it. That's not always the best case. There's always going to be some consequence to something that is a shortcut. And essentially, that's what cannabis is used as. It's used as a way to shut down. It's used as a way to stop caring. It's used as a way to get rid of pain. It's used as a way to escape. I don't like things, I want to get away from things. And that is a shortcut. Rather than fixing problems in life, rather than getting around problems in life, rather than making life better, let's just forget about life for a bit. So one of the problems with pot is that it goes in your brain and it starts shutting down stuff. A lot like alcohol, but different stuff. It shuts down the self-analysis. That's the front of the brain where you check yourself, same as alcohol. Other stuff, though, that's different. It shuts down emotional processing. So your ability while high on marijuana, and even after the high is gone, your ability to read people, to look at them, have a conversation with them, and know what they're feeling, that is diminished. And the more you use, the worse it gets. The less and less you're able to have that conversation where you can tell they're angry with you. You can tell they're excited. You can tell they're upset about something, or they're sad about something. You get worse and worse at that as time goes on. Also, memory retrieval starts to suffer, and so you'll have memories, but you'll have to work really hard to get at them. Really difficult all of a sudden to just pull out, what did happen last week? And we see this a lot in pop culture. People wake up from being high and they're like, whoa, what happened last night? This is not just some sort of movie trope. This is reality. When you use marijuana, you start losing the ability to remember things easily. And then last but not least is problem solving. When confronted with something complex, like, well, we have a car with 5 seats in it, and we have another car with 5 seats in it, and we have 7 people. And she wants to ride with him, he wants to ride with her. At some point when you're high, or you've recently been using marijuana, you just throw up your arms and go, oh, okay, let's just get in the car. You don't even stop to think, like, how could we fix this? Or, I only have this much money and I have these many bills. What are the due dates of these bills? You just stop caring because the problem gets harder. We've done tests, and it turns out habitual use of marijuana will drop your IQ by 8 points, and that can last up to 3 months after you smoke marijuana. This is one of those things that's not really out there that people realize. By the way, 8 points is a lot. That's the difference between an A student and a D student. 8 points. That's all it takes. A to D. And that's actually the way it was measured on high school students, was watching marijuana use versus, my mouth is so dry, versus grades. In adults, they just did actual IQ tests, because adults aren't getting tests and quizzes all the time to test their intelligence. They'd actually take IQ tests to test the adults. But on average, yeah, 8 points. And the longer you use it, the more come down time there is to get your IQ back. So using it about twice a week is enough to permanently alter your IQ and keep you at 8 points. Using it once every month is enough to build up an IQ blockage, so that you will always have 3 months of 8 points loss out in front of you. That whenever you stop, you will have to wait 3 months before you are as smart as you used to be. Other side effects include sensory distortion, panic, anxiety, poor coordination of movement, lowered reaction time. After an initial up, the user feels sleepy or depressed. Increased heartbeat and risk of heart attack. Reduced resistance to common illnesses such as colds and bronchitis. Suppression of the immune system, growth disorders, rapid permanent destruction of lung fibers and lesions in the lung. Reduced ability to learn and retain information. Apathy, just not caring. Drowsiness, lack of motivation, personality and mood changes, and the inability to understand things clearly. That's a mouthful. Now, if you don't believe me, and you've used marijuana, it's likely due to that first thing right there, self-analysis. If you've used marijuana and you didn't notice any of these things in you, that is classic. There has never been a case where someone was hospitalized for marijuana and they knew there was something wrong with them and why there was something wrong with them. Every time someone who smokes marijuana ends up in the ER because they smoked too much marijuana, they don't know what's wrong with them. They don't even know why they feel bad. They can't tell. And when the nurse or the doctor says, you've been smoking too much marijuana, they're surprised. I thought it was safe. I thought what? They're confused because the symptoms have already set in. And so yeah, if you've used marijuana and you don't believe me there's symptoms, it's probably because your brain doesn't have the ability to look back at itself in the mirror and say, am I okay? I'm not sure if I'm okay.
Eh.
That part's gone as soon as you start smoking the marijuana. That said, if you ever have had a friend who went from not smoking marijuana to suddenly smoking marijuana on a regular basis, you'll probably start to notice some of these side effects, like the change of mood or temperament or personality, like the inability to care about their friends like they used to. And so if you guys want more information on marijuana,
No.
I have little handouts where you can read even more details. You can read about the studies they've done on marijuana. There hasn't been a lot, it's kind of sad. We're already legalizing it in many, many states and we don't even know all the ramifications of it. This is just what we know so far. This is from just a handful of studies. Pot for teens is actually worse than it is for adults. And the reason is because in an adult, stop smoking pot and you can get most of your brain back to normal in a short amount of time. As a teen, this doesn't work. Kids actually have a larger brain mass than adults do. And as you go through the teen years, your body is actually deciding, what don't I use very much? And getting rid of it. It is trimming your brain, honing you into a focused, well-oiled machine that is good at certain things. And so whatever you practice the most, sports-wise, music-wise, study in school, those are the things you're going to remain good at for the rest of your life. And that phrase, can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's not 100% true, but it comes from the fact that adult brains don't adapt as quickly as teenage brains do.
What if you did your childhood doing nothing?
You will end up being good at very little. Very little. Yes, absolutely true. And so this is one of the main dangers of pot for teens, is that all those things that are temporarily shut down, like the emotional center, problem solving, memory retrieval, the ability to look back at yourself and see how you're doing in life, those are all shut down temporarily by the pot, and then your brain goes, well, we haven't used that in a while. Probably don't need it. And it will start just chucking things that you need for the rest of your life.
Like how to walk.
Like how to tell that someone's upset with you. Like how to remember things. Like how to properly pay bills, because that's a really tough, complex problem to keep up on. So smoking pot while you're a teen will basically get your brain to go, yeah, I don't really need any of that important stuff. Yeah, it's unimportant. And then by the time you're an adult, it is permanent, and you will never get it back. It won't ever come back. Yeah.
Doesn't that happen when you do acid too? It's called like permafried or something. It makes you like turn into like an idiot.
There are further problems with acid. It is more volatile than pot, but every drug will have this same difference between adult use and teen use. Any drug that alters the brain in a significant way, which is most of them, will cause permanent damage in teens that it wouldn't cause in adults. Because teen brains are already in that ongoing process of get rid of the stuff I don't use all the time. Since it's like that, any drug that alters your mental state will cause you to stay altered for the rest of your life. Talk to Pastor Sam sometime. He used to be a hippie, smoked pot on more than one occasion. And yeah, go back far enough in time. It's been decades since that was him. But talk to him, ask him about the friends he has that were already smoking pot in their teen years that he still knows. And he'll tell you, they still have the problems they had back then. They didn't go away because they grew up and stopped smoking pot. They still have them. Same problems. All right. Vapes. I don't have a ton of time. We're out. But I'll just give you the quick version. It still has nicotine. It's still addictive. And
It's smoke.
it's well, it's vapor. It is vapor. But nicotine is added to it because the vapor isn't addictive by itself. And the companies don't want you to have anything in your hands that isn't addictive, because then you might quit. So they stick nicotine into it, and then when you vape, you're getting like vaporized chemicals. The water is burned off, and you just get the chemicals. And then in it is nicotine. What's interesting about this is they did studies on all the brands that say nicotine-free on the label, and 82% of them still had nicotine. Because there's no regulation on e-cigs. There's no regulation on vape liquid. It's all floating under the radar, under the law. There's no laws about it yet. In very few places, they're just starting to get some.
So you could put acid in it and they wouldn't care?
Well, acid's already an illegal substance, so yes.
Well, they used to put cocaine in Coca-Cola.
Well, that was before it was an illegal substance. Historically, yes, they did,
Well,
but that was
what if they
prior
made this
to.
like new hyped up 8-hour energy, a bit of cocaine, just a tiny little bit, or something like that, or they did make this hybrid drug.
It didn't have a ton in it. You can go look. There's YouTube videos that explain all about what amount they stuck in there. Yeah, Sam.
I learned that sugar is the same has the same addiction level as cocaine.
Luckily, it has less symptoms. That's lucky. But yeah, it's just as addictive. They've checked it on lab rats, and the lab rats actually will take sugar over cocaine when they've got them addicted to both, and they give them a choice between the two.
Sugar all day.
I'm not even kidding.
Candy
All right, that's it for tonight. I wish I had more time. We're going to pray before we go. Don't leave just yet. We're going to pray first. If you guys have any questions about the drugs we mentioned tonight or other drugs, please stay in chat. Ask questions. Don't just bail. If you have any questions about the ones we did cover, obviously, please stay in chat. If you guys would like more information about marijuana, talk to me. I have a little extra handout because there's just too much information to convey in one night.
It feels like when you're about to pass out and you pet a dog.
What? Can we pray now?
Okay, we're going to pray. Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you that you've set us straight and try to steer us clear of all these things that can ruin our lives. Help us, Lord, to stay strong. As we get older and older, more and more temptations of drugs and alcohol and partying are going to hit us. So help us, Lord, to stay on that straight and narrow. Help us to follow you instead of what the world says. Help us, Lord, to make wise decisions so that we can not only please you, but we can also have our life stay on track. Help us with all these things, Lord. We ask that in your name. Amen. Love you guys. If you have questions, stick around. Oh, come on. There it is. Big winner. Logan wins.
3 in a row?
Logan doesn't even have a rubber case on this.
Me either.
Look, feel my case and it like.
I know. It's actually smooth though. It has the soft touch.
I do have a couple questions.
Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
so like if Canch doesn't, don't,
How many words do you have?
What is that? That's his clothes.
I was gonna say that's like a shirt all bundled up.
so doesn't